Welcome to today's explainer. If you've spent, any time at all around personal finance or investment literature, you've absolutely heard the ultimate pitch. We're talking about the strategy that's touted as the closest thing we have to a guaranteed win in the financial world: index funds. The narrative we're constantly sold is that it's almost mathematically inevitable. It's pitched as a strategy so overwhelmingly sound that the biggest mistake you could possibly make is simply not participating. And it's an alluring idea, right? I mean, it's the promise of absolute financial freedom neatly packaged into a single, effortless decision. The standard financial pitch usually goes exactly like this: buy the whole market, hold forever, and you simply cannot lose. It's a beautifully clean narrative. And look, to be perfectly fair to the financial community, based on the historical data we've explored in our previous explainers, much of this framing is genuinely supported by the evidence. Index funds have, without a doubt, outperformed the vast majority of actively managed alternatives over most long-term periods. Okay, let's dive into this, because saying a strategy usually wins over long periods is a very, very different statement from saying it cannot lose money. So what if the highlight reel everyone loves to play is missing a crucial, complex chapter? Today, we're going to explore a meaningful, heavily research-backed list of specific ways index fund investors actually do lose money, and sometimes permanently. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't an argument against index funds. Just consider this the missing chapter, the one that conveniently gets cut from the brochure because it complicates that pristine, unconditionally safe narrative. To really understand this, let's imagine two completely different approaches to the exact same market. First, we have Oliver. Oliver relies entirely on what we'll call blind faith. To him, index investing is essentially risk-free as long as he waits long enough. He believes the market always recovers, not as a historical probability, but like it's an unconditional law of nature. Then we have Yumi. Yumi is an incredibly trusted, inspiring professional who navigates the corporate finance world with this aura of elegance and, most importantly, calculated precision. Yumi uses hard data to navigate hidden risks. She knows index funds are a brilliant core strategy, for sure, but she's actually studied the specific mechanisms through which investors have lost real money, even while following conventional wisdom. Her knowledge doesn't make her abandon the strategy, it makes her execute it flawlessly. Let's explore the exact hidden risks Yumi watches out for. The very first risk on Yumi's radar is by far the most common and honestly entirely preventable: the panic sell. The claim that index funds always recover is historically accurate, sure, but only for investors who actually hold through the decline. Dalbar research consistently shows this massive multi-percentage point annual gap between a fund's actual returns and the returns of the investors in it. And this gap, it's driven almost entirely by human psychology, buying high and selling low. So the index fund itself might not lose money over a 30-year horizon, but the investor inside it, who panics and liquidates everything during a market crash, absolutely converts a temporary paper loss into a permanent, unrecoverable one. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. While human psychology is a major trap, the actual structure of the funds themselves holds hidden dangers. This brings us to concentration risk, quietly hiding inside supposedly diversified funds. Most people assume an index fund is perfectly balanced. Actually, scratch that. Most people don't even think about the weighting at all. But major indices like the S&P 500 are market cap weighted. S&P Dow Jones data reveals that the top 10 companies have, at various points, represented more than 30% of the index's total weight. That means if you think you own 500 equally diversified companies, you're actually carrying a massive concentration risk tied to just a handful of mega-cap tech giants. If those specific companies face a structural decline, the rest of your diversified portfolio gets dragged right down with them. Now, even if you hold your nerve and avoid heavy concentration, there is still the very real danger of buying at valuation extremes. We often hear that investing at all-time highs isn't necessarily a bad thing, but valuation extremes, that's a completely different animal. Research from Robert Shiller at Yale, using his famous cyclically adjusted price-to-earnings ratio, reveals that your starting valuation level is literally one of the most reliable predictors of your subsequent 10-year returns. If you buy in at historically extreme valuation peaks, you are practically guaranteeing yourself meaningfully lower returns over the next decade compared to starting at a more normal valuation. To put Shiller's research into a bit of perspective, let's trace a real-world timeline. Imagine an investor who confidently dropped a huge lump sum into a broad U.S. index fund at the absolute peak of the dot-com bubble back in March of 2000. Following the conventional wisdom of just buy and hold, this investor sat through the crash, painfully sat through the mid-decade stagnation of 2005, and just kept waiting. It took over a decade, well into the 2010s, just for that investment to return to its starting value in real terms. They experienced a grueling, lost decade, all while doing everything they were supposedly supposed to do right. This over-reliance on U.S. dominance introduces another huge blind spot: geographic concentration. The entire gospel of index funds almost exclusively relies on U.S. market history. And yeah, the U.S. century has been totally exceptional. But exceptional historical performance is not a law of physics. Research from Dimson, Marsh, and Staunton at the London Business School looked at global equity markets across the entire 20th century. They found multiple major markets where broad market index investors experienced multi-decade periods of negative or perfectly stagnant real returns. Betting entirely on the U.S. is exactly that. It's an implicit bet that historical dominance will just magically continue, not a guaranteed law of nature. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the year 1989. To truly grasp the danger of geographic concentration, that's the year we have to look at. That was the year Japan's Nikkei 225 index hit its absolute peak. For context, despite Japan being a massive, incredibly technologically advanced global economy, that broad market index still has not durably surpassed its 1989 peak. We are talking more than 3 full decades later. An entire generation of investors in that index has effectively just been treading water. Moving on, perhaps the most insidious threat of all is a silent thief: inflation erosion. Your account statement can and will lie to you. It might show that your index fund fully recovered its nominal value after a major crash, but if that recovery overlapped with high inflation, you've actually lost serious purchasing power. Vanguard analyzed the brutal 1973 to 1974 U.S. bear market. On paper, the nominal value of the S&P 500 recovered to its pre-crash levels by 1976. Sounds great, right? But here is the dramatic reality. Because of the rampant inflation of the late 1970s, the actual purchasing power, the real inflation-adjusted value of that money, did not bounce back until 1985. The account statement confidently told investors they were back to even in just 2 years, but their actual ability to go out and buy goods and services told a story that was a full decade longer and considerably more painful. Now, as investors try to get smart and diversify away from these risks by buying specialized funds, they often hit structural failures. While this is definitely less common in the massive, major funds, it's a very real danger as you branch out into niches. Index funds are designed to perfectly track a benchmark, but they can suffer from tracking error due to trading costs and timing differences. Furthermore, Morningstar data reveals a pretty surprising fact. Hundreds of ETFs and mutual funds, including specialized index funds, are liquidated or merged every single year. If a niche fund fails to attract enough assets, the parent company can just close it, forcing you to sell at a terrible time and potentially triggering a massive, unplanned tax bill for you. The final piece of the puzzle, specifically for international investors, is currency risk. Holding international funds is absolutely great for diversification, but the returns you actually see are highly dependent on how foreign currencies perform relative to your home currency. MSCI research shows that currency fluctuations alone can quietly swing your reported annual returns by 10 to 20 percentage points. Think about that. You could have a year where the actual foreign businesses you invested in perform phenomenally well, but just because their currency weakened against yours, your personal portfolio barely moves. Or you could even lose money. So the crucial point is, none of these risks invalidate the core, well-documented case for index investing. Lower costs and broad diversification absolutely remain the bedrock of a solid portfolio. But what all this data demands we do is shift our mindset. We have to replace the mythic, unconditional claim that index funds can never lose money with a much more grounded, conditional truth. Index funds deliver strong returns for investors who hold broadly diversified, low-cost funds across multiple geographies, who absolutely do not sell during drawdowns, and who are careful to avoid buying heavily at historical valuation extremes. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actionable strategy. Enter Yumi's playbook. It's a masterclass in calculated precision designed to counteract these exact failure modes we've talked about. First up, she commits her strategy in writing before a crash ever happens, which entirely neutralizes the urge to panic sell when things get scary. Second, she diversifies her geography and market cap, mixing international funds and equal-weight indexes to avoid relying solely on a handful of U.S. tech giants. And third, to defeat valuation extremes and inflation, she dollar-cost averages her large lump sums into the market over time. This ensures she never accidentally buys her entire portfolio at the very top of a historical bubble. Ultimately, Yumi believes the exact same core thing our friend Oliver does, that index funds are a brilliant foundation. But she holds that belief with the knowledge of how it can go wrong, rather than just despite not knowing. This doesn't make her a less confident investor. It actually makes her an incredibly durable one. So I leave you with this final thought for today's explainer as you look at your own portfolio. When it comes to your financial freedom, will you invest with blind faith, or will you step up and navigate the markets with calculated precision? Think about that and join us next time as we break down the exact strategies for combining index funds with other asset classes to build an absolutely bulletproof portfolio. See you then.
Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please take a second to like and subscribe. Your support helps us create more content that informs, inspires, and entertains. We truly appreciate you, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.